Right, this is lecture 3 from chapter 9 of CFIN7. We're talking about NPV, specifically the rationale for the NPV. Recall the NPV is equal to the present value of the future cash flows. We present value them at our required rate of return. That rate of return needs to be a minimum of the firm's cost of capital. It also needs to be varied based on the riskiness of the project. And then we add back the cost. As the cost is an outflow, that's a negative. The NPV result is the net gain or loss in wealth or value. So a positive number means it would increase the value of the firm. A negative number means that it would reduce the value of the firm. That's why you don't want to invest in a negative NPV project. So we accept if the NPV is greater than 0. So if we're choosing between two mutually exclusive projects, we would select the one with the highest NPV, because it will add more value to the firm than the other project would. So we are referring back to our previous two projects. So which should be accepted? Recall the NPV of Project S was $161.33. The NPV of Project L was $108.67. So if the projects are independent, then you would accept or purchase both because they both have positive NPVs. If they're mutually exclusive, you would accept Project S because the NPV of Project S is greater than the project than the NPV of L. So now we're going to move on to internal rate of return. So the investment's IRR is the rate of return that will be earned if the project is purchased and held for its entire life. It's a similar calculation to yield to maturity. The IRR decision rule is a project is acceptable if the IRR is greater than the required rate of return. So R being the firm's required rate of return, then which is the minimum return that must be earned on its investments. So the NPV can be done by hand. The IRR, on the other hand, cannot be. I mean, well, it can be. You can sit there and basically guess the rate, but there's IRR function on the calculator and in Excel. They are much easier to use than trying to do it by hand. So, but the NPV is the present value of all the future cash flows at the same rate that where the NPV equals 0. That we have to figure out this rate, and again, Excel and your calculator do it fairly easily. So if we go back to Project S, we recall we had a $3,000 initial cash flow and $1,500, $1,200, $800, and $300. We bring up the calculator. Well, here we've got Project L in there right now, but to do Project L, we could just do IRR compute. Hit the IRR key and compute, and we get 11.38%. If you recall, that's greater than 10%, so theoretically it's acceptable. Now, second cash flow, second clear. So now 3,000, their initial cash flow. Enter or cost. So C01 is the 1,500. Enter. C02 is 1,200. Enter. C03 is 800. And just, I'm going down arrow. I go once from F0, CF0 to C01. Then I go from C01 to C02 and so on down the line. So C04, I go down arrow twice. Whoops. 300. Enter, and then IRR compute, and 13.11%. So as we would expect, the IRR for project S is greater than project L. So again, this is what the cash flow looks like, and you're present valuing at the IRR, and on the calculator as we entered, CF0 is negative 3,000. C01 is not CF1 on our calculator, 1,500, and on down the line to 300 in year 4. IRR compute 13.11, and as we calculated the IRR project L 11.38%. So if the project's IRR is greater than the firm's required rate of return, there's return left over to boost the stockholders' return. So, for example, IRRS is 13.1, which is greater than the required rate of return of 10%, so you'd accept the project. So as we saw, both are greater than both project IRRs are greater than the 10% required rate of return. So if project S and L, we would accept both. If project S and L are mutually exclusive based on IRR, project S is more acceptable because its IRR is greater. We'll start the next lecture with NPV profile.